Hi, hello, welcome to Two Facet Podcast, a podcast where we talk about digital products development. I'm Matt Mikulski, product manager, and I'm here with the co-host.
I'm Juncal Gonzalez, and I'm a product designer.
Hey, hello everybody.
Hey.
So today our topic is Northstar frameworks.
That's it.
Yeah, as you may notice with our previous episodes, we've been talking a bit about metrics, how to set up them, how to track, strategies and things like this. But then, all of this boils down to how to set up this one metric you will be using. That's in industry usually it's called a North Star. No? So this one metric you're going to be using as a leading one for your product team. So today we'll be talking about how to set it up.
Exactly. And especially if you need to do something with your team together, like as a workshop, to set everything up together, this episode is going to be useful for you.
Yeah, and we really recommend doing it with the team. So the collaboration in this framework is very important to have these different ideas and different point of views available to you while creating this North Star. So the framework we want to show you comes from the Amplitude, so the company that builds like the analytics tools. You may be knowing them. Basically, the model that they propose is that the North Star is composed from multiple input metrics. So you can imagine there is one goal we want to do, but there are different inputs that are driving you towards that, right? So the one metric is never consisted of like, this is one metric of one action and so North Star are very rarely like one button click or something like this. It's more like business/customer value at the end. This is the North Star you want to measure. So Amplitude proposes few steps and techniques that helps you set up the North Star and think about those input metrics.
And doing this type of workshop, like the one we're going to explain today, is useful as well for individual contributors from the team that are not that much used to these strategical measurements or strategical North Star, and will help everybody see how they can actually impact it, right?
Yeah. Before we jump into this, the framework itself, maybe let's mention a few things or like moments when this concrete framework is useful for your team. Even if you have a North Star, I still believe there are a few points when it's super useful for you to run the workshop. So what are the moments?
So first of all, it's very useful when you need to prioritize, like what are we going to do next, right? So having a North Star will help you know, okay, which are going to be the next steps. And of course, for decision making, right? To taking decisions inside the team, having this super clear and the understanding from the whole team will help a lot.
So decision making should be much faster, and it's actually sometimes maybe decentralized. So you don't need to have this one single sign off of like, yes, this manager says we can do it because this gonna drive the metric, or even if you have few teams working one North Star, but contributing to different input metrics, they also can make their own decisions, not centralizing that to, but how this will translate exactly to this business value we see at the other end.
Yes, and it will help us as well to align on what we want to do, right? And to communicate, because sometimes when you have like a North Star written or a data, what does it mean on the head of each one of the persons, right?
Exactly.
So if we define it together, we're more aligned and we're able to better communicate.
Yeah, and it does create like some shared dictionary for a team to say. So one is like the metrics, but then the naming convention will be created, you will understand the inputs, etc. So the rest of the decisions from the team are much more empowered, I would say.
Yes. And another benefit is that it helps the team to have this more outcome mindset or impact mindset rather than the feature or the task mindset, right?
Exactly.
Because you understand more clearly what your work is impacting.
Yeah, because your goal stops being delivery. It becomes you need to push the goal further. So when working on projects, you should be thinking then, okay, this project, how much is going to impact any of the input metrics so we can move the North Star further. Not we have this list and let's build it. No, so it enables teams to focus on more impact and like product led development instead of like feature factories and output based teams.
Exactly. So if you see that any of these benefits you may be useful for you.
Yeah, we highly recommend going through. I will link in the description the article from Amplitude, going super deeply in each of the steps in the workshop. Spoiler alert, we will prepare for you like a workshop video too. But today let's go through all of the elements and like the overview so you can make up your mind about is it something that could work for your team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk first about there's like 3 main blocks of elements we are going to work on.
You will be seeing now beautiful visualization from post-production. We can wave our hands because now they will be seeing only the graphics. So
yes,
there's no video anymore. Welcome to audio version of this podcast again. But yeah, as you are seeing right now on a graph, there are a few core elements to the whole concept. So the first one, the most obvious one, is the Northstar Metric itself. So the Northstar Metric should represent your product strategy. It also defines the connection between customer problems and the business results. And it should be an indicator of the business results and customer value. So it should reflect, business results, not people will be clicking my button. No, this does not translate to the result. What else do we have here?
Yes, so we have this Northstar. Another big group are the inputs.
Yeah.
And the difference is that the inputs are more actionable by the team, right? And they could be translated maybe even into features. So they are things that are more tangible. And they bring us leading metrics, which means we can see the results super quickly, whereas maybe the Northstar not that much.
Yeah. You can imagine you have your ultimate business goal is to get more engaged customers, half of the businesses, no? But if you want to have a product team focused on this, getting more engaged customers, they're going to be influencing that, but a short time period, it is impossible to say what's your impact actually over this goal, no? Because it's heavily biased by customer success, sales, onboarding processes you have in a company, like will you deliver some new sales during that period of time, right? But then so this becomes like a lagging metric. You do something and then after 1 month you can see how the sales went and what was the feedback loop. When we are talking about something leading, it's more like, okay, so can I see behavior data more right now, or something that I can, measure right now and see impact over it, like with every action I do instantly, or like within short period of time. So those are the input. They should be the ones that can be actually influenced by product. So we should not be thinking when creating these input metrics, don't focus too much on sales or metrics, or we know for engagement the onboarding scoring is probably important input, but if your team is not touching it or cannot influence it, I would really skip it.
And then the third one is the actual work the team is working on, right? This is the one that as individual contributors we are more familiar with. But the good thing is that the 3 of them will be connected, and you can see that in the graph. So, which I find super interesting here, at least for the individual contributor role for sure, is that you see the connection very clear between your work and the Northstar metric, and you understand the small successes you can have in the middle.
Exactly, and this is this alignment part that we were speaking about with Hunkal, that the team gets aligned and they understand how they can influence this metric.
Yes.
And then the discussion in the team becomes super different, right? So even if you have a list of features, you're gonna try to compare those features towards the input metrics, no?
Yes.
Or you should to do smart work. So then you see, hey, some of the things seem more impactful and some of them seem, we could do it, but who really cares? So the discussion is totally different than when you would have we have this goal and those are our ideas how to do it. And of course you can still apply prioritization, but this framework gives you this by default. So you need to think, okay, but how this connects to the business value we want to deliver.
Yes, and it empowers in general more the team, because the team is able now to, maybe they have some ideas or some initiatives, and if they are able to connect it with the inputs on the Northstar metric, then it's better to sell it to the business or to the company. So it empowers a bit everybody.
Exactly. So those are the elements you should have after running the workshop, which is the main core part of this framework, is actually how to set it up with your teams. Today we're just gonna go through workshop steps, describing what's there, what's not. And then hopefully you are still with us, and this is super interesting information for you as well. So workshop, how do we start it?
How do we start? Okay, so the goal for the workshop would be to have this template filled up with everything. And the first step to be able to fill it up is to understand which kind of business we have. Yeah. Right?
We call it a game, or framework calls it a game, and there are different types of games. So maybe it's an attention game. So the business benefits from the time you're using the product. This is the easiest example is social networks.
Social media.
So you want to have users spending a lot of time there scrolling because one, algorithm gonna be better, and two, you can display better ads. So this is mainly you want people to have time spent on your website, blogs, media. This is a lot of this. Then you have transaction game, right? So you benefit from users participating in your economy. So e-commerce, marketplaces, everything like this. So you want to have a lot of transactions. So Booking.com does have bookings as the Northstar, but that's
people buying and selling services, products, whatever.
Exactly, and you want to have as many of them doing it. Or you maybe have a productivity game. So your tool is actually to make users more productive. So you want to check, are they accomplishing their tasks? Are they getting the benefits you're selling? So from to-do list applications to Visual Studio for developers probably, right? So it's more tools and productivity businesses. So first part of the workshop is trying to understand what's your business. So which game are you playing, or which part your team domain is playing to the company goal if you have a bit different split, right?
Exactly. And probably by doing this, you will have a conversation with everybody from the team, and you will start to get a bit more aligned on who we are, right, and where we are going. And from there, the next thing you can do is to start brainstorming a possible North Star with your team, trying to shape it, making discussions about maybe the wording you're using. And for this stage, you can not only brainstorm and discuss, but there is also a checklist that can guide you on what is a good North Star and if what we are phrasing is actually a North Star.
Yeah, exactly. So in this part, as Funkal said, we are discussing the possible North Stars and what would be good or bad, taking in consideration which kind of the three types of the business we can be. What's also important during this conversation, you're probably going to change this type of a business 3 times. Because with enough play time, I can say any business is any, But it's like what's most important for you right now and what's really the core. Once we have that, we go with it. So first thing about Northstar is it needs to express the value, So we should, by looking at it, we should know why does it matter to customers.
Yes, this is very interesting. It should be human-centered in a way, right? Yeah. It should matter to someone, and it should be helping someone's problem.
Yeah. An example from actually this workshop is the Northstar set up by the Netflix team early on, back when they were a DVD business. They were actually looking at the number of users that are putting in their queue more than 3 DVDs. Because they believed early on this is going to be important to have this selection, be able to build up your library and hook up the customers so they keep ordering new DVDs, and then we move to digital and you binge watch one series over the weekend. But they knew early on that's going to be the differentiator, and they knew, okay, so if you have 3 DVDs queued up, you probably will get a value of you have movies you want to watch, and you got there pretty fast. While talking about it, I can imagine 10 different ways of influencing how many users we have, and this is our input metrics probably.
But we have the users there, whereas if we would only measure the numbers of DVDs we're selling, for instance, then we don't know if the value we're bringing to the customer is good or not.
Exactly, but you could imagine there would have the KPI of like, by the end of 2026, we have 1 million DVDs sent to users. This still would mean a lot of users, but are you giving them value? And Netflix knew it's an attention game, It's not about renting DVDs. That was Blockbuster, and they knew it's not gonna fly. But it's more attention game. So can Netflix get you in, and then you keep watching content that they're gonna deliver for you through Postmail back in the day, but nowadays we know the solution. Second thing about the good North Stars is they represent vision and strategy of the company. So in case of Netflix, I don't remember exact phrasing, but again, it expressed that we are here for attention game, so we want to deliver content to our customers as much as possible, so it's for their needs. And then having Northstar of this, we have users with at least 3 DVDs queued up, shows this value, right? So we want to get into the attention game and helps everybody to align around it. What else? It should be also a leading indicator of the success. So it should predict the future, not really reflect on the past.
Not reflect the results.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So it should be looking at the future and trying to assume what's gonna be the indicator of a success for us as a company, team, domain, whatever, right? But it should not be reflecting on the past results.
Then it should be actionable
Yeah.
as well. This is an interesting one. It should be relatively easy to think about actions we can take on to impact it.
And the other tip from industry, probably written in some books, is also, if it's actionable, I would say it needs to be able to measure from day 0. So if you set up a metric, you say it's actionable, but we'll spend 2 months setting it up, we are starting wrong foot probably, no? So we should be looking for something we have right now, or something that's like fairly easy for us to compute, so you don't spend time trying to find this metric and calculate it while you keep producing stuff for God knows what, no? So I would try to focus actionability over also like what are your resources and what's true or what's not. And this will also sometimes show like holes in the business, but that's fine, no? This means, okay, so as a business we cannot focus there because we don't even know what's this number. So is our problem we are not influencing the number we don't know the value of, or hey, we don't know the value of this number, no? So different discussion.
Exactly. So this is a type of discussion that while going through this checklist, the team will be having to define it. And another one of the checklist is that it should be understandable.
Yes.
Sounds obvious, but well, sometimes we may use words that are only understandable by a small maybe group of people inside the team.
So I can make an example. 50% of users make meaningful action after booking, requesting, booking, or referring to their specialist. Does it make sense? I mean, it's still plain English. In my mind, makes sense. If you spend like 15 minutes and think healthcare, probably it's gonna make some sense to you. But that's not the best one, to be honest. We rephrase it at the end, so the stakeholders that are not super deeply into what we do can super quickly understand of like, oh, so this team is working at that. Our users will have more DVDs queued up. I understand that, no? So
yes,
this you should have this feeling when doing it.
This is key for sharing with the stakeholders and for the whole company. Yes, and as you said, it should be measurable. Right. So product team should be able to
measure it.
Yeah.
And again, I know it's gonna be tempting saying like, no, this is the perfect input metric. We need to have it measured, but we don't know how. Let's spend some time there. Spend time there, but treat it parallel to whatever you have. Then do less amazing Northstar and just use the ones you can already measure, and add later some inputs if you believe they're gonna be there, which can be true if your product evolves in time. Maybe the inputs change also. So And last but not least, it should never be a vanity metric. So we should be super confident that this change is, that what we want to achieve is really valuable, meaningful, and it's not that something that tries to predict long-term success and makes us feel good about ourselves. No, we should be sure, and it should have this feeling of like, okay, so now I created this Excel spreadsheet that my CTO gonna be asking about, and he's gonna be asking about this budget and why this invoice is here. So we should have the same with this metric of like, okay, we trust it as our money or whatever, and not that, yeah, it's a nice one, it's super vague that even if I don't do anything, it still grows and we feel ourselves, we are changing world. Yeah, cool, but let's not try to fool ourselves.
Yes, it's very related to the first one, that it should bring value, represent value, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
So once we have this, so let's say you went with the team through the checklist. You have the Northstar metric, so we know what's our long-term or success metric and how we will measure the success. And as we were saying, the second part of the graph is the input metrics. So now with the team, you should be starting coming up with those inputs. The framework proposes few categories of those inputs. So when thinking about it, and you're gonna have a ton of them, so users using a product, users logging in, logging out, churning, thousands of things may come. So categories. The first one is breadth. So how many users are engaging. So is it input about quantity basically, right? So it's like how many users we have.
Yeah, so the breadth tells you. No, the words for me it's like the breadth, how big it is, the amount of users.
So then we have depth. So you can imagine, and it's a super easy one. I love that it's called depth. So it's what level of engagement they are reaching.
Yes.
And this is fairly natural when you think about product work. So you will have users that are logging in and doing 25 actions, and users that are logging in and clicking one action. No, and usually we'll say weekly active users.
But how much are they using it?
Differently active. They're maybe a bit more active and less active. So here you can look at all of the inputs or metrics that you believe, hey, they can show us how much engaged they are. Not that only they use, but how much value we deliver to them or how much they use it basically.
Yes, probably because they are more power users or because they use it more time or things like that.
Exactly. Yes. And then you have frequency, so how often this user engage. And then sometimes you're going to have products where you want like daily engagement, I don't know, to-do list, calendars. Sometimes you're going to be fine with like, oh, my users are logging in every month to create their invoices and send it to the accountant. No, it's so nice that they're doing that every month and the frequency is there and they are coming back. So you think about how often the user is going to engage with you. And then the last category is efficiency, right?
Like how many tasks the user is performing, right?
Yeah, how fast sometimes, things like this. So an example from one of the startups I've been talking in the past was like a startup focused on radiology images and then creating description over those images. So the problem that they were trying to solve was that radiologists are spending a lot of time creating those descriptions of the images, and a lot of this is repetitive. So their main goal was going under 2 minutes with creating the description. And they went extreme, showing timers to users and saying like, you did it in 20 seconds. Normally you would do it in 5 minutes. But it was like for them efficiency was the core, so they had a lot of input metrics around efficiency of a user over this core action that they have.
Yes.
And, driving this value proposition further.
So these buckets, it doesn't mean that you have to find like perfect inputs. So you should not get trapped into, no, this is breadth, but what is it depth? They are more like a guidance for you to help you think about all the possible aspects you can tackle.
Exactly.
And maybe for your product, you have more ideas of one bucket, less from another. That's totally fine. That's just like a help or a support.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you need to have 3 inputs in each of the categories, etc. I mean, it's healthy, but again, depends on the stage, the Northstar itself. So if you're at stage of the startup, for example, is like, at the beginning, you probably gonna want to have traction, not necessarily the deepest engagement on the planet. Again, probably depends on SaaS versus marketplace and things like this, but in different stages you may be much more focused on breadth versus depth, or maybe you're scaling up and then your frequency and depth are the most important things because you want your users to be heavily engaged with the platform. No, you're scaling and yes, you can bring thousands of them, but after that, what do they do? Do they churn next day? So depends, but it should be a mix, and as you're saying, you should not be obsessed especially trying to assign them. It's just to help. No?
It's just to help, and the goal is just to find these metrics that are in between metrics that will help us impact the Northstar one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have the Northstar, we have our input, so we know how we can influence the Northstar. Everything's connected to our long-term metrics for the business. What's the last thing we need to do?
And then we have the work, right? Okay, so imagine we have a few input metrics regarding engagement or regarding efficiency. What actions are we going to take on that? Are we developing a new feature? Are we, improving efficiency of some part of the system?
So this is the moment when you can bring your opportunity solution tree, backlog, idea bank, whatever technique you're using, and try to connect it back to those input metrics.
Yes.
So to see how you can influence it. And this gives you this alignment and possibility to prioritize towards bigger impact, because now you're faced with like, okay, from the world of our ideas, how do they connect to what we've been talking about, of like how we can influence the success metric of ourselves. Exactly. So this gives your team like alignment and understanding of like, oh, we will not be doing this, or maybe even further if you use any continuous discovery habits, techniques, or things like this, you keep evolving, no? But this gives you, for an example of opportunity solution tree, as we were talking in some episodes, on the top you have the one outcome you want to see, right? Yes. So in this case you have your Northstar, and if you want to compare one opportunity to another, you can use your input metrics as the guidance. So then you say, that's gonna work more with depth, but that's gonna make users use it more frequently. So which one we believe we need to push now to drive the Northstar? And this is the part that I believe it's the most fun. After yes. doing this discussion, it's just yes. like, okay, so what do we do? It may generate some interesting results of like, oh, we had a lot of ideas that makes nothing. Yes,
or we were working in this feature, and now that we see the Northstar and the input metrics, it was not really very impactful or meaningful, no?
Still fun, but why we cared about it? But this is good, no? Because this yes. brings alignment and makes the team more empowered at the end.
Yes, and also one other thing is that when you do this workshop, it could be several sessions. It doesn't mean it's going to just end up written on stone and you're not going to change it.
No, it should live.
With the new learnings, we should maybe evolve, maybe want to tweak the Northstar, have new inputs,
In our case, we also did it in one meeting. It was actually few meetings until
yes,
we
at least three, I would say. Yes.
the alignment and having something that everybody believed it's like good metric with good inputs that everybody's aligned, but super worth doing it. And then the next things are easier because you're just updating. So
yes.
As with everything continuous, you just react to whatever you see in the market. So you may find out, okay, frequency is great. Now let's focus on breadth inputs because that's the car for us right now. We are lacking on this one. You can switch pretty easily.
Exactly.
So
okay.
Hopefully that gave you some inspiration on how you can approach setting up the Northstar with your teams. As I said, in the episode description you will find the link to original Amplitude article with all of the bits, tricks and pieces of this framework. In short episodes we will soon maybe show you this in real life too.
Exactly, so you see the example and the dynamics of how this can be done.
So please make sure to subscribe so you will know whenever we post that video. And if you have any comments or you would like to talk with us, you can always interact with us in YouTube comments. You can send us email at 2facetpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us also at Twitter and LinkedIn, as 2facet. So we recommend you everywhere you could find us. We are probably there. And thank you for listening today, and hopefully see you in the next one soon.
See you.
Bye.